second, why are you watching this, you ask? Well, for starters, it's interesting and violent and funny. What else can you want? This was a fight between 49ers and Raiders fans. Because they occupy the same state, they are constantly vying for attention from the fans and competing.
When there are many controversial voices in a small area, then violence is extremely likely to occur, especially when the people are not properly represented. This is what happened in Austria and the Ottoman empires. Unlike Germany and Italy, whose people were homogeneous in race and language, the Balkan cultures were extremely diverse due to the constant past wars between the Christians and Muslims.
These people were later forced into these two strict autocratic empires where many of the heterogeneous people were pushed down in society. This division by area and race gave certain groups a sense of nationalism and caused them to riot. This would soon spell the decline of these two empires.
The challenge for Austria was getting different groups of nationalities to unite under one nation. It was difficult to get every single group to agree to be governed by one nationality. Austria also lost to the Prussian-Hungarian revolt, which weakened the empire. Each group wanted to go off and make their own country and demanded rights and independence.
Nationalism was a threat to Austria because the empire was made up of many nationalists. Many of the other groups resented being governed by the German minority and this spurred any kind of uprising or revolution. Large groups such as the Hungarians were set on re-establishing independence. The Hungarians and the Prussians ended up revolting and weakening the empire significantly.
Nationalism in the Habsburg Empire faced change. The Austrian emperor and the minister, Metternich, used classical conservatism and suppressed any kind of industrial movement because reforms meant unrest. However, Francis Joseph did allow limited reforms in order to strengthen the empire and set up a new legislature. The problem was that the majority of the legislature were German-speaking Austrians, and as a result did not benefit any of the other nationalities.
In a heterogeneous population where there are many different groups of nationalists, it is also impossible to get all of them to agree to be ruled under one group. When war between the Austrians and Prussians broke out and the Austrians lost, the Hungarians saw an opening for independence and autonomy. This in turn caused resistance to Francis Joseph and led the Hungarians to revolt. The resulting compromise was a dual monarchy, which was where Hungary and Austria became separate states but were ruled under one person. Francis Joseph, they were independent in most things, but they shared in common finance, defense, and foreign affairs.
There were some difficult challenges for the Ottomans. Some of them were getting all the minor nations within the empire to unite under one government. When the minor nations were first conquered, they were allowed to have their own religion and have their own way of life, as long as they paid their taxes to the Ottomans. As soon as they stopped paying their taxes, their freedom was removed.
Nationalism became a threat because the empire is made of different minorities. Each minority wanted to rule their life and their way, but the government started to enforce laws which caused minorities to revolt. First group to revolt were the Serbia and Greeks, and after that, the empire was weakened greatly.
Fantastic. Nationalism created a feeling of unrest in the minor nations due to the government trying to impose laws and rules on them to unite them as one nation. By doing this, the nations revolted and weakened the empire. The other major powers called the Ottomans the sick men of Europe, because they fell from being a major nation. Once they were weakened, the minor nations rise to gain independence, and all the other major nations tried to conquer them and annex them to their nations.
In the heterogeneous population, the more heterogeneous the population is, the more issues they have on getting together. People have their own religion and way of life. If the government that rules them tries to change their life, this creates negative feelings between the people and the government and leads to revolt.
Okay.
Nationalism in the Austrian Empire!